I know you as Martin Scorsese, who was initially negative about OTT. Now he's making movies with aughts. In 2019, he made a movie with Netflix. I think he wanted to complete the gangster movie that he'd been making, which I know wasn't very well received. It was a movie about what happened to a character who was a gangster when he was younger, and what happened to him when he got older. It was called The Irishman, and I know it won a bunch of awards. This time he's working with Apple. I think it's available on Apple TV, but I saw it in theaters. It's a whopping 206 minutes long. In the past, movies like this would have had an intermission, and I think that was possible because it was a single feature back then. It's over 3 hours long, and I found myself tossing and turning a little bit towards the end. This time around, we have Leonardo DiCaprio. If in the past his persona was Robert De Niro, now it's Leonardo DiCaprio. In this movie, we have both. DiCaprio is a much different character than he used to be. He used to be a handsome guy at the height of his popularity. And his movies were all about the box office. Titanic was the pinnacle of that. And since then, he's been winning with his acting rather than his good looks. He was nominated for a long time and didn't win, so many people felt sorry for him. Now that he finally won, it would be nice to see him in something more box office, but he's still choosing based on his work. Tom Hanks went through a similar path, but after being recognized for his acting, he's starring and making movies that only he can do. DiCaprio's most successful movie was Inception, so I'd like to see him do something cool again. But he always chooses to show crisis and misery rather than coolness. This is the case with the flower-killing moon. Hale, played by Robert De Niro, is a mountain. With the Osage, he's the best of the white guys. The Osage are Indians. In America, Indians were the original owners of the land, but it was taken away from them by the white man and they were forced to live in certain areas. The land that the Osage chose was not a good land for an Indian. And there are a lot of things that make a good land, but this land unexpectedly became the best. Now the Osage could live off the land without having to work, and the Indians who lived there could live off the money from the sale of the oil. They could make money without having to work. And with the oil, a lot of white people came to the area to make money. Hale, who had been here for a long time, was coexisting with the Indians, and the land he owned was not producing oil, so he was raising cattle. Strangely, the Osage keep dying. They're treated as suicides or they're murdered. The police don't investigate these things properly now. There's a huge cartel that's formed. On top of that, white people have a bad opinion of Indians who make a living without working. Even though it was originally Indian land and they came to make money. When an Osage dies, of course, the revenue rights go to the survivors. What if the Osage spouse who dies here is white? That's exactly what happens. The vast majority of dead Indians had white spouses who were entitled to the profits. The life expectancy of an Osage is about 50 years old, maybe because the movie is set in the 1920s to 40s, so if they commit suicide, it's not looked at too strangely, but it's done without investigation. Add to that the fact that there are a lot of Osages who are diabetic, and they have a very long life. They need insulin, and they mix it with other things. Slowly they're dying and no one suspects it. In this situation, Ernest, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, comes back from the war and is invited by his uncle, Hale, whose name is also Ernest, so there's a connection to what he does in the future movie. While there, Ernest drives around and meets Molly. Hale strategically wanted the two to work out, but Ernest really did love Molly. Despite his love, it was hard for him to refuse his uncle Hale's orders. Hale did what was in his best interest. I think he was watching the Times, watching the movies, and thinking that white people were really their oil. He didn't really see black people as human beings, so he probably didn't see Indians as human beings either. Which is why he felt no guilt in poisoning and killing them. In the movie, the white man keeps saying to the Osage, "You're not working, as ideologues do. You're playing and making a living while they're working and earning a living." It seems like the disdain for unwillingness to work is the same now as it was then. I looked up the movie to see if it was true, and it was. The Osage went directly to the president and asked him to send in the federal police because they couldn't trust the local police. They said the Indians in the movie were real Osage. They said they were in the movie. In a way, it's part of the appeal of the movie, and part of its duty, to bring these things to light, even if it's a truth that you want to keep hidden.